the dependent settler colonial Abyssinian empire teetering with one leg. An empire itself has lived with a consciousness of its own consciousness of its mortality. Thus the dependent predatory settler colonial Abyssinia shall not be otherwise. The photo is mine. The cracks in the foundation of an empire. For over a century, the narrative of a unified and ancient Ethiopia has been carefully cultivated, masking the complex and often brutal realities of its formation and continued existence. Beneath the veneer of national pride and historical grandeur lies the uncomfortable truth of a dependent settler colonial empire, increasingly showing signs of strain and potentially teetering on its last legs. The seeds were in earnest sown in the late 19th century in Europe, in the notoriously known scramble for African resources, where the temple was framed in 1884-1885 in Berlin. Although no African representative was participated in the Berlin Conference, the emerging local chieftains, what was nominal called Abyssinian, Tigray and Amhara mainly, more precisely Aksum and Gondar at least, since the arrival of Portuguese rescue mission of the myth and legend known in Europe, about 4 centuries th, whereabout were not known. The Christian kingdom of Prester John, in the 1540s, was considered as actual Abyssinia. The Portuguese used it the legend as prelude in search of turf, in one of the most important geopolitical and economic position known in the world since time immemorial, the Red Sea and its coasts. The European of 19th century followed the footstep of Portuguese and singular, picked up the emerging chieftains in the region as the partitioner not victim of the scramble of Northeast Africa in absentee. They enabled to be the shareholder. That was the anomaly of scramble for Africa, while the rest of Africa fall at the hand of European colonizers, genocidarians, salve traders, looters of the second largest and richest continent of Africa. Northeast Africa was left for Abyssinian local chieftains genocidarians, slave, cattle raiders, ethnocidarians, arm and leg mutilators, rapists, vectors of diseases analog to their European mentors and enablers indeed. They armed with European weaponry to their teeth, provided them the architects of empire builder, like Alfred Ilg. Consequential that emboldened the cruelest of all 𝗗𝗄𝗃 outlaw village bully chieftain, like 𝗂𝗄𝗃 of 𝗂𝗵𝗃, in Gondar the offspring of 𝗂𝗄𝗃 vendors 𝗂𝗲𝗏, 𝗂𝗏𝗄𝗃 II, and Anot 𝗂𝗂𝗃 of Tigray renamed 𝗂𝗏𝗍𝗄𝗃 IV and 𝗂𝗲𝗏 of 𝗂𝗃𝗄𝗃 renamed Menelik Roman II imperial ambitions. From now on, they would be the architects of empire, like Alfred Ilg, armed to the teeth with European weapons. As a result, he had been the underdog of both 𝗗𝗄𝗃 warlords until his last master, 𝗂𝗏𝗍𝗄𝗃, had been killed by the cruel village tyrant 𝗂𝗂𝗃s of Gondar and Tigray, 𝗂𝗏𝗄𝗃 and 𝗂𝗏𝗏, renamed Menelik II, of the rival European imperial ambitions. The conglomerates disenfranchised the 𝗂𝗏𝗍𝗄𝗃's army, which joined with 𝗂𝗏𝗏 and local Oromo assimilated forces, the 𝗂𝗶𝗽𝗃s, and invaded all the way south and east. He underdog of both 𝗂𝗂𝗃 until his final master 𝗂𝗏𝗍𝗄𝗃 was killed in 1889. 𝗂𝗏𝗏 become the only beneficiary of all connecting European colonizers, most importantly Italy, France, Britain, and Russia. After 𝗂𝗏𝗍𝗄𝗃 was killed, his strong disfranchised army joined 𝗂𝗏𝗏 without significant resistance to invade Oromia and expanded toward the west, south, and east of Angkor. The artful bounders, as she was known, currently, was demarcated, singed with over 30 treaties with each other. They all committed genocides wherever their fanatic militia hordes feet held and subjugating diverse ethnic groups like the Oromo, Somali, Afar, Sidama plus over 90 nationals, land appropriation, slavery, settled Nafxanyas, gun carrier, cultural suppression, and destruction of these newly conquered resource-rich colonial territories were the major achievement of the warlords of the Abyssinian core settlers that hold to the very date. The term settler colonial applies because, unlike traditional colonialism focused solely on resource extraction, this involved significant population displacement and the systematic establishment of Amhara and Tigrayan dominance in the conquered regions. Land was seized and redistributed to settlers from the core, displacing indigenous populations and undermining their traditional ways of life. Language, culture, and religious practices were systematically suppressed in favor of Amharic and Orthodox Christianity, further solidifying the cultural hegemony of the ruling classes. The dependent aspect of this empire stems from its reliance on external powers for survival. From its early dependence on European arms and advisors to its more recent alignment with international financial institutions and geopolitical allies, the Abyssinian Empire has historically relied on external support to maintain its grip on power. This dependence has made it vulnerable to external pressures and internal instability, fueling internal resentment and separatist movements. Today, the cracks in this edifice are becoming increasingly visible. Decades of marginalization and oppression have fueled resentment among the diverse ethnic groups who feel excluded from the political and economic mainstream. Insurgencies and armed conflicts are becoming more frequent and intense, challenging the central government's authority and highlighting the deep-seated cleavages within the empire. Furthermore, the very notion of a unified Ethiopian identity is being questioned by a younger generation who are increasingly identifying with their distinct ethnic and cultural backgrounds. This growing assertion of ethnic identities is undermining the carefully constructed narrative of national unity and challenging the legitimacy of the empire itself. The situation is further complicated by the ongoing political and economic instability in the region. Internal power struggles, external interference, and the mismanagement of resources are exacerbating existing tensions and contributing to a sense of crisis. While predicting the future is impossible, the signs are clear. The dependent settler colonial Abyssinian Empire is facing an existential crisis. Its long-term survival hinges on its ability to address the deep-seated grievances of its marginalized populations, dismantle the structures of oppression, and forge a truly inclusive and equitable society. Without genuine reform and a commitment to self-determination for all its people, the cracks in the foundation will continue to widen, potentially leading to the disintegration of the empire and the emergence of a new order in the Horn of Africa. Whether this new order will be more just and equitable remains to be seen, but the writing is on the wall for the current system. The question is not if, but when and how. The empire will finally crumble. The rule of thieves, criminals, and liars at 𝗵𝗏𝗻𝗄, a societal reflection. The phrase rule of thieves, criminals, and liars stings. It paints a bleak picture of a society where morality is eroded, and those who disregard the law and manipulate the truth thrive. While a complete embrace of such a ruling class is unlikely, the phrase serves as a powerful warning against the pitfalls of unchecked corruption, ethical decay, and societal apathy. Understanding how such a situation can even begin to emerge is crucial to safeguarding our institutions and preserving a just society. Erosion of trust, the foundation for deceit. At the heart of this rule lies a fundamental erosion of trust. Trust in institutions, trust in leaders, and even trust in one another. When people feel disillusioned, unheard, and vulnerable, they are more susceptible to the allure of those who promise quick fixes, regardless of their methods. Criminals and liars often prey on this vulnerability, exploiting societal anxieties for their own gain. This erosion can stem from a variety of factors. Economic inequality, the insidious process by which wealth rapidly concentrates in the hands of a select few, leaving the vast majority behind, quickly metastasizes beyond mere economic imbalance. It breeds a palpable sense of injustice and deep-seated resentment, as ordinary people witness their struggles intensify, while an elite few hoard an ever larger share of prosperity and power. This gnawing perception of systemic inequity inevitably leads to a crisis of faith, causing people to question the very legitimacy of the economic and political systems under which they live. When the rules seem rigged and the rewards disproportionately skewed, the social contract itself begins to fray. Ultimately, for those masses condemned to a life of perpetual struggle, living in a hell while the dictators who inhabit a self-made heaven on the same shared soil, the crushing weight of their circumstances leaves them with no option but to revolt. Political polarization. The strategic cultivation of political polarization, echoing the oldest methods perfected by autocratic regimes, is a potent tool for achieving extreme division and partisan gridlock. This deliberate fostering of antagonism leads, consequentially, to profound governmental paralysis, where vital decision-making grinds to a halt. However, what begins as a calculated maneuver to concentrate power or suppress dissent invariably proves to have a grave boomerang effect. The consistent inaction and systemic dysfunction, though gradual in their onset, inexorably erode public trust and societal cohesion. Ultimately, this self-inflicted paralysis either condemns the government to a debilitating state of irrelevance, or, more drastically, ignites a furious popular revolt aimed at fundamentally uprooting the very system it was designed to control or manipulate. Corruption and lack of accountability. At the very heart of authoritarian rule lies a profound and corrosive nexus of corruption and absolute lack of accountability. These regimes are not merely characterized by centralized power, but by the systemic exploitation of that power for personal gain and the enrichment of a select few. Those entrenched in positions of authority operate with chilling impunity, their actions often divorced from any semblance of ethical governance or public oversight. What emerges is a perverse rule of law that is, in essence, the rule of their law, a set of arbitrary decrees and self-serving principles designed to legitimize their abuses and shield them from any form of retribution. This stands in diametric opposition to the very notion of public law, which is theoretically founded on principles of justice, equity, transparency, and the common good of all citizens. In such a system, the state becomes an instrument of personal enrichment and oppression, fundamentally betraying its purpose and transforming governance into a tool for the powerful, rather than a protector of the populace. The spread of misinformation. Authoritarian regimes cement their grip on power by meticulously seizing control of all media outlets, transforming them into conduits for a constant barrage of false and misleading information. This deliberate propagation of untruths has become their most potent tool, not only for achieving their nefarious objectives, but more importantly, for clinging desperately to power until their last breath, often amplified exponentially by the virality of social media. For these autocrats, truth is an existential threat, a suicidal pill they can never accept, as it exposes the fragile foundations of their rule. Even when brought before courts of law, they staunchly refuse to acknowledge reality, preferring to die with their falsehoods intact, embracing a double death rather than conceding to the overwhelming weight of evidence and fact. The mechanics of power, how deception takes hold. Once trust is fractured, the stage is set for the rise of those who operate outside the bounds of ethical conduct. This rise is often gradual, insidious, and masked by carefully constructed narratives. Strategic deception. Liars manipulate information to sway public opinion, often employing propaganda, misinformation campaigns, and outright falsehoods. They exploit confirmation bias, appealing to pre-existing beliefs to gain support. Criminal alliances. Thieves and criminals often work together, leveraging their collective power to intimidate, coerce, and control resources. They may infiltrate legitimate businesses and institutions, corrupting them from within. The cult of personality. Charismatic figures, even if ethically compromised, can amass a devoted following by promising radical change and offering simple solutions to complex problems. This blind loyalty can shield them from scrutiny and accountability. Suppression of dissent. Opponents and whistleblowers are often silenced through intimidation, legal harassment, and even violence. This creates a chilling effect, discouraging others from speaking out against corruption. The consequences, a society unraveling. The consequences of a society governed by thieves, criminals, and liars are far-reaching and devastating. Economic instability. Corruption and fraud undermine economic growth, deter investment, and exacerbate inequality. Breakdown of the rule of law. A disregard for the law creates a climate of impunity, where criminals operate with impunity and the vulnerable are left unprotected. Social fragmentation. Mistrust and division deepen, leading to increased social unrest and conflict. Erosion of democratic values. Freedom of speech, freedom of the press, and the right to due process are all threatened as those in power seek to consolidate their control. Fighting back, reclaiming trust and ethics. Preventing the rule of thieves, criminals, and liars requires a multifaceted approach that focuses on rebuilding trust. Strengthening institutions and holding those in power accountable. Promoting transparency and accountability. Shining a light on corruption, promoting independent oversight, and enforcing ethical standards are essential. Investing in education and critical thinking. Equipping citizens with the skills to discern fact from fiction and to analyze information critically is crucial for combating misinformation. Strengthening democratic institutions. Protecting freedom of the press, promoting independent journalism, and ensuring fair and transparent elections are vital. Promoting ethical leadership. Electing and supporting leaders who are committed to integrity, transparency, and the public good is essential. Empowering citizens. Encouraging active participation in civic life, supporting community organizations, and fostering a sense of collective responsibility can help to rebuild trust and create a more just society. The phrase "rule of thieves, criminals, and liars" is a chilling reminder of the dangers of complacency and moral decay. By understanding the factors that contribute to such a situation, we can work to build a society based on trust, justice, and accountability, where ethical conduct prevails. The fight for a just and equitable society is an ongoing one, requiring vigilance, courage, and a commitment to upholding the principles of integrity and truth. First and foremost, thank you. Whether you've lingered on a single line, bookmarked an entire post, or simply skimmed through the headlines, your curiosity is the true engine behind every piece we create. Your time, attention, and the occasional aha moment you share in the comments are the quiet applause that tells us we're on the right track. In short, you're not just a reader, you're a co-author of this growing community, and we're grateful for every glance, every share, and every thoughtful reply. If you've found value in what you've read, we'd love to keep the conversation going. Subscribing to our channel ensures you won't miss future insights, tips, or the occasional behind-the-scenes glimpse that we reserve for our most engaged audience. And if something resonated with you, please hit the share button. Your friends, colleagues, or anyone else who could benefit from the information will thank you as much as we do. Finally, don't let the dialogue end here. Drop a comment, ask a question, or share your own experience. Your voice not only enriches the discussion but also helps shape the content we produce next. Thank you for being part of this journey. Let's keep learning, growing, and connecting together.